Hey there, I'm John Cox with Board Game Geek, and today I have Todd Rowland from AEG, and it looks like we're talking about Tiny Towns.
We are talking about Tiny Towns.
So what's going on?
Well, we are very excited about Tiny Towns. We'll be out in April, and in Tiny Towns, you are attempting to build a tiny town. Each player has a 4x4 grid, and it plays up to 6 players. And on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to pick one of the resource types. So on my turn, I might say, okay, everybody's going to take gray.
All right.
And then you get a gray,
Okay.
I get a gray, everybody who's playing gets a gray, and you have to put it somewhere on your 4x4 grid.
Okay.
You can decide wherever you want to put it,
All right.
and once you put it there, it goes to the next player. So now you would pick a color. You could pick the same color, you could pick a different color.
Okay.
Let's say you picked red. So everybody gets a red, and we have to put it somewhere on our grid as well.
Okay.
Now, why are you doing this, right? Because it's fun to put cubes on grids. The end.
Pretty
No, I'm just
bad.
kidding. No, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make different combinations of shapes and colors to build buildings in your town. So let's say that we had created this shape here, which, as you can see, it has the red, blue, yellow, which corresponds to the red, blue, yellow. It can be rotated as long as it still is in that formation.
Okay.
Once I've completed that, whether it's on my turn or somebody else's turn, I can remove those 3 from my board to take one of the cottages, and there are many more than 2 available.
Sure.
We just put out 2 for this. To take one of them and place it on any one of those spaces that the resources came off of.
Okay.
Once the building is built, it's permanently there. You can never have more than one thing in a square. So now, whenever anybody calls a resource, I can never put it back in that square.
Okay.
It's permanently done. And if there's already squares out there, I can't put a second one in it. I can only put it somewhere else.
That makes sense.
So as you play, you're going to be buying back space by building buildings, but then you're also going to ultimately continue to lose space as the game goes on. The way you win the game is through creating various combinations and arrangements of your buildings, because each building has different ways of scoring.
Okay.
So for instance, if we look at the inn says it's worth 3 victory points at the end if it's not in a row or a column with another inn.
Okay.
So obviously you're going to want to have like an inn here and then another one down here so that they're not crossing with each other
Sure.
to get their most points.
Right.
Cottages get 3 victory points if it's fed. Now, the way they're fed is through whatever your farm type building is. This one feeds 4 cottage buildings anywhere in your town.
Okay.
So as long as you have a farm somewhere, your cottages will score 3 points. And then to look into the combo, the chapel is worth 1 point for every fed cottage. So if you have all 4, each chapel you have is going to be worth 4 points. So everybody has these basic buildings, and to note, with the exception of the cottage, which is always in the game, there's up to 4 potential different buildings for each building type.
Okay.
So you could have a tailor, you could have a, well actually, for ones I remember, you could have a farm, you could have an orchard, a greenhouse. They have different color combinations and different ways that they score.
They feed differently.
Yes,
So every time you play the game, you use one of each of these different types.
Correct.
Okay.
And then every player receives one of this type of cube or token, I should say, which is your monument. Now, there's a deck of monuments that you shuffle up and you deal each player 1 at the beginning of the game. They can choose to build it or they don't have to, but once they built it, they can reveal it, and the monuments usually do something very cool. So in this case, this obelisk of the crescent lets you place all your future buildings on any empty space in your town. It doesn't have to be where the cubes were.
Very powerful.
Which gives you a great advantage in that. But then this one, this Madras Palace, is worth 2 victory points for every unique adjacent building type. So if you can get multiple types around it, it can be worth a great number of points. And every player will have one of those.
I see. So at the start of the game, you just get a random one of these.
Yeah.
And there's a nice big deck of them, so each time you play, you're going to be probably going after a different monument.
There's a lot of variety in the game. You can have a lot of different strategies that come out in it.
Okay.
And what we introduced that was fun for solo play, as well as a variant play type, is what we call Town Hall mode. Now, Town Hall mode uses this deck that you see here, and if you notice, there's cards for each of the resource types, wheat, glass, etc. So what you do is you shuffle this deck up, and then you're going to reveal the top card, and that's the cube that you get, and that all the other players get if you're using Town Hall mode.
Okay.
So, but to keep it from being completely on the rails, every 3rd choice, you get to pick what you want.
Okay.
So you get 2 told to you, then you get to pick one. Then you get 2 told, then you get to pick one. And we call that the Town Hall variant.
Okay.
What's going to be neat is what we're going to do with that is at the release of the game, many YouTubers have gotten on board, and they're going to be making what are called play-along videos, where they're going to set up the arrangement that they want, and they're going to do a Town Hall mode style, where they're calling and you're playing against them to see if you can beat them at home.
Okay.
And we're going to have a live stream the day of the, or actually shortly after the release, and then people will be able to play along with the live stream as soon as they get that copy of the game.
That's great. So when is that release going to be?
That will be in late April. I want to say around the 22nd of April, but double check.
Late April.
Yeah, late April will be when it's out. It will have a 2-week in-store exclusive release time, so it will not be available online for 2 weeks. You can only get it in store. So go to your local store and put in your pre-order.
Great. One other question I have, just in case we didn't cover it, it plays 1 to 6 players?
Yes, 1 to 6 players out of the box. But the cool thing about the game is that with the Town Hall mode, where you're just basically calling, you could set up 3 copies of Tiny Town somewhere and have up to 18 people playing together because they're all just building off of whatever color was chosen.
Sure.
And technically the game can scale sort of infinitely. You could have any amount of people playing as long as you have one person doing the calling of what the colors are throughout the game.
All right, well, thanks for showing us Tiny Towns, Todd.
Thank you.